What is up, guys? It's Brillymister here and welcome to today's video. If you do enjoy the video, then don't forget to drop a like, leave a comment and subscribe, and hit all the links up down below to Twitch and Discord. Enjoy the video. So before we get properly into the guide, I want to start this video off with a little disclaimer. Soloing ED1 is fairly high level PVM. Admittedly, it is not the absolute pinnacle, but it is not easy to do either. To be able to solo it, you're going to need at least a decent knowledge of the combat system and how to deal with mechanics and deal decent DPS. It's not for complete beginners to PVM. As such, you're going to need fairly high-end gear and decent stats to be able to solo it. However, it is possible to do it in a group with lower stats and lower gear. But to be able to successfully solo it, you're going to need high-end gear. It's pretty unreasonable to think that someone learning this as a beginner to ED1 is going to be able to do it with sort of tier 80 weapons and tier 70 armor. You're going to want decent gear. There are two very easy ways to be able to get to Elite Dungeon 1. The first one is using one of the portals within the PVM hub. However, this does require 1 KC. This can be done in a group or solo, so if you've got some friends and you don't have the portal there, you can go and unlock it by just going a quick group run. Failing that, you can make a group in the grouping system, ready up, complete group, and then use that to teleport there. Although you'll only need to do this again for the first time, as you will be able to use the PVM hub portals after your first kill. So moving now on to the requirements, and this is the base of what I would recommend. It may after a while be possible with slightly less than this, but to start learning, I would definitely recommend that you have 95 plus in your combat stats, at least tier 90 weapons so you're able to do a decent amount of DPS, and at least tier 80 armor. 95 prayer is also recommended so you can make use of Soul Split and the tier 95 prayers. However, if you have tier 99 prayers, that is a massive advantage. Overloads, I'd say, are also a definite need for here. I wouldn't try and do this if you only have extremes or are still using super potions. Now we get on to some useful unlocks. These aren't necessary to solo the dungeon, however they will make your life a lot easier and a lot more comfortable. The first one is the Disruption Shield spell. This is useful at multiple times during the dungeon. Dominion Mines also come in very handy for the crystals at Seiryu and just give you that extra bit of DPS. Double Surge and Bladed Dive are really nice here, as they allow you to go through the dungeon a lot quicker and improves your mobility a lot. Vampirism Scrimshaw, if you are meleeing, is very good here. It gives you a lot of healing throughout the dungeon while you're using AoE abilities and helps you conserve a lot of prayer and food whilst on the bosses. Greater abilities are also going to help you a lot here. They will just increase your DPS. Greater Barge and Greater Ricochet especially will definitely increase you for those respective styles. Elder Overloads, again, is a little bit more damage and a little bit more defense and will just help you out that little bit. So next we will move on to the setups. I'm going to showcase a melee and a range setup. I'm not going to showcase a mage one, as I think mage is a little bit underwhelming here compared to the other styles due to the lack of AoE compared to using Chin Chompers or with melee with Hurricane, Meteor Strike, etc. With both these setups, it's up to you whether you want to use a Ripper Demon or use a Pack Yak. I figure you're better off using a Pack Yak and taking the extra food and actually getting kills while you learn, rather than trying to learn on a Ripper Demon and then not being able to get kills and having to telly out all the time or just running out of food. You're better off just getting the kill. So we'll start with my melee setup here. I personally use full trimmed masterwork, an Essence of Finality or an Amulet of Souls. Either or is up to you, it doesn't really make too much difference. Laceration boots are really nice here, as it allows you to bladed dive around whilst using your scythe. You can then use a rune pouch, which I equip, and that has my Disruption Shield runes in it. In my inventory I take Vuln Bombs, a dual wield switch and Dominion Mines. You don't necessarily need tier 92 weapons here, you can downgrade to tier 90s. However, this is what I personally use, but Dry Gauze will do completely fine rather than Kopeshes. And again, ZGS, it's not necessary to have a ZGS and a spear switch, but they are nice to have. So over time, you'll be able to customize your sort of inventory and gear setup to suit yourself. This is just an example of what I use. Melee is the style that I personally use most when I am doing ED1. So now we move on to the range setup. It's something that I personally think is a little bit more chill than melee, especially at Seiryu, although you do need to be aware that you don't have the trimmed masterwork effect, and when I started learning it with ranged, that did catch me out a few times after getting used to having used the trimmed masterwork effect. So for this setup I use Serenic Armour, an EOF or an Amulet of Souls again. Fleeting Boots is really nice so you can run around and rapid fire. Dominion Mines is also very nice, again, for the crystals. I use Cinderbane gloves as a lot of the stuff throughout the dungeon is poisonable, therefore it makes them pretty much best in slot, and I couldn't use them with the melee because I needed to keep the 3 pieces of trimmed masterwork. Vuln bombs again, Scrimshaw of Cruelty or a charged godbook. I use a charged godbook here, it's the ancient one, and that is purely because it is the cheapest one and it still adds a bit of DPS. I take a ruby and diamond criminal bolt switch and I use them for the bosses, and then I only use the ascension bolts whilst just going through the dungeon. Chin chompers and an offhand to use the chin chompers with is also another thing which is very, very nice to have and will increase your DPS significantly. For your weapon again, I'd recommend at least tier 90. Ascension crossbows would be nice. I'm using an ECB, but that is pretty unnecessary, and if you've only got ascensions, that will be completely fine. Part 1 of this dungeon goes from the entrance all the way up to the first boss, the Sanctum Guardian. I'm playing this clip in 2 times speed so I can show you roughly what happens at a slightly sped up speed. You need to go to this side and kill the few things just by the gate here to open it up. It's easy to AoE these down using Hurricane and Quake, or if you're ranging again with Chin Chompers. Next here you want to double surge and then bladed dive to get really quickly down there, and then you can barge into the middle of the things over here. Once again you want to AoE these down using Meteor Strike, Quake or Hurricane, or Chin Chompers again if you are using ranged. Once you've killed those you can ignore everything else and go through to this next bit. These 3 mage things here and any other of the little mage water guys that you see throughout the dungeon, all we like to use lots of stuns. So using Anticipation and Freedom here can speed up your kills a little bit, otherwise it does cancel your abilities. It's really annoying when it cancels like an assault or a destroy or something halfway through the ability and you lose all that damage and then you have to stand there stunned. So it's really easy to just use Anticipation and not have to worry about that. Once you're through into this next room, once again you just need to kill the 4 little water things and the 1 guy in front of it, and then that will open up the next barrier. The next barrier through here, you can then choose to either go east or west. It makes no difference, you just have to kill the 3 little water mages on either side. It doesn't matter which side you go, it's purely down to personal preference. I tend to always go this one way, and yeah, you just bladed dive and you'll only aggro the 1 lot. Occasionally you can end up aggroing the few on the other side, but it's not very often that that happens, and even if you do, it's just a few more stuns you have to deal with. You don't have to actually kill the things from the other side. Once you have then killed these 3, it's then just a case of surging and bladed diving all the way down to before the first boss, and then you want to go down on this west side here and kill these 3 mages here before the boss. Once you've killed these 3 mages, you can ignore everything else and teleport out to the PVM hub to build your adrenaline and restock if you need to before going into the first boss, the Sanctum Guardian. So there are 2 different ways to kill Sanctum Guardian. There's an easy way and a slightly more advanced way. I'm going to showcase the easy way quickly here first. I'm only using tier 90s and I'm not using Disruption Shield. It obviously will result in a slightly slower kill than doing it the quick way. So there are 3 main mechanics here. The water beam that you can see I'm dodging here, you just need to stand slightly to one side of the room and then move slightly to the other side of the room to avoid that. The water splash, as you see there, you just flick to pray melee, and you also saw me dealing with the fire there. When you get the fire underneath you, you see a little timer going down, cooling down on you. Once that happens, I just use bladed dive and put it somewhere wherever I want out of the way. As you saw, I misclicked there, but it's still kind of out of the way, so it doesn't matter too much. And you basically just repeat this throughout the kill. I'm also not using my ZGS here, just to showcase what it is doing with just using tier 90, so I'm only using Drygles as well rather than Kopeshes. And as you can see, you just keep avoiding the water beams. Every time you get a fire, you just hold your bladed dive, and when it gets to a little bit before the bar being empty, bladed dive to somewhere along the edge and put it there. And when he does the water splash, I just swap to pray melee and then go back to pray range just after and carry on doing a little DPS rotation and killing it. This method is a little bit slower. I think this kill was like a 3-minute 20 or something like that from when I did it. Purely because you can't Vuln bomb it here. There's nowhere from this side that you can throw and hit it with Vuln bombs. So that is like 10% less DPS that you do using this method, which you can obviously do more when I show you the advanced method in a second, but you will need Disruption Shield to be able to do that. And as you can see now, we are coming to the end of the kill, and that was pretty smooth, and that's all you need to do for the easy method. So here is the more advanced method, and it basically involves starting the kill from round the back, so you can Vuln Bomb by throwing it upon yourself just on the floor there, and it will still actually hit the boss. If you try and Vuln Bomb from round the front, it won't hit the boss. I've also got rid of the overlay on the screen so you can see more clearly how I'm dealing with each of the mechanics. The main difference from doing it round the back here is to deal with the beam, you can't just step to one side and completely avoid it, so you have to either use Resonance, which will make it hit a 0, Disruption Shield, or Debilitate. You can use Resonance every other beam and it will be off cooldown. However, Disruption Shield will only be off cooldown once per minute, so you can use it on the 2nd and the 5th beam. You can't use it on the 4th beam. So for the 4th beam, you just want to use Debilitate and just tank it. Other than that, it's very similar for the kill. You just want to DPS as much as you can. I'm using my tier 92s here, so I'm rotating between Zerk and ZGS spec, whereas on the easy method I wasn't using any tier 92s, so I was just using Zerk. This cuts your kill time down by a lot by the fact that you can use Vuln Bombs, and that speeds it up on its own quite considerably. And as you can see, I'm coming to the end of the kill here, and it is almost over, and we just need to get our last couple of hits and it will be down. Once you've killed the Sanctum Guardian, you can then move on to part 2 of the dungeon. Part 2 of the dungeon goes all the way to Masuta and is, in my opinion, one of the harder parts of the dungeon, as there are quite a few things that hit you with lots of different combat styles simultaneously. You want to start off by killing the Cloaked Zealots here, which you want to pray Mage for. Then you've got 3 Death Lotus Rogues here. You want to pray range, as these have a special attack and it does very substantial damage, and you want to get them down as quickly as possible. Then you're down to some more Cloaked Zealots down there. There's 3 of them. Once you've killed them, that opens the door and you can then run through. There's nothing you need to kill really in this next bit, so you can just absolutely power through it with Bladed Dive and Surge, and they really do come in handy here, saving you have to walk. All you need to kill is this 1 Cloaked Zealot right at the end to open up the next barrier. From there, you want to just run through towards the next barrier where there are another 3 Cloaked Zealots. Once again, you want to pray Mage and just AoE these down. Hurricane and Quake are really good here, as are Chin Chompers. Then when you get up to the top here, there are another load of Cloaked Zealots. There's quite a lot of them here, and you have to kill all of them and nothing else to open up the next barrier. Once again, use of abilities like Hurricane, Quake, Meteor Strike, or if you're ranging, using Chin Chompers are really useful here to get through them nice and quickly. Once you've killed them, you can then move through to the next room. There are 2 of the little water mages here. You just want to kill them and that will open the next barrier. There is 1 healer up here, but there's nothing that you need to do about them. You can just completely ignore them. This next bit here, you're going to want to pray melee. If you Surge and Bladed Dive on the same tick like that, you'll jump double and you won't get all of the Hanto Sellswords aggroed on you. It's not the end of the world if you do. You just want to focus on killing them first, because once again they have a special attack which will hit you quite considerably. Other than that, you just want to once again AoE down using either your Chin Chompers or using AoE abilities like Hurricane and Quake, and then the door will open up. Once again, you want to try and Surge Bladed Dive in the same tick to jump through, and then you can eventually avoid the Death Lotuses from attacking you. If you mess it up like I did there, you just want to make sure you kill the Death Lotus Rogues before you go on to killing anything else. Finally, for this part of the dungeon, you just want to pray Mage again and kill the 4 Zealots here just before you go into the next bit. As soon as this barrier is down, you're then good to teleport out and get your Adrenaline and restock for Masuta. The second boss of ED1 is Masuta, and it's the boss that people generally look forward to the least. It can be split into 3 easy phases. In the first phase, there are only 2 real mechanics that you need to worry about. The first one is the spin, which you just saw there, where he'll rapidly basically hurricane, and you want to either use Devotion or just run away to avoid that. The second is a purple smoke attack, which you can see on screen now, where it'll spawn lots of purple smoke, and all you need to do is run away and you will completely avoid that attack. If you don't want to run away, you can also use Disruption Shield or just use Devotion and Pray Mage, and you will also avoid it, but the easiest way is to just run away and do it. As you just saw, he did a spin attack again. I didn't have Devotion off cooldown that time, so I just had to run away from it. This phase carries on until you get Masuta to 275k life points, at which time it will then phase into phase 2. For the second phase of Masuta, he doesn't directly attack you, he just floats around and he summons lots of thrashing waters randomly throughout the room. The easiest way to deal with these is just to Bladed Dive between them, and as long as you kill them within 2 attacks of your Bladed Dive, it will reset the cooldown, so you can just Bladed Dive indefinitely between all of them. If Bladed Dive, however, does go off cooldown, then you can just use Barge, or if the worst comes to it, you can just run between them. Every one that you kill whilst standing within melee distance of it will give you 5% damage reduction for the rest of the fight. That's why melee is really nice here. If you do it with range, you actually have to run and stand next to them before you kill them to get that damage bonus, whereas if you're using melee, then you're obviously going to be in melee range anyway. In my opinion, the third phase of Masuta is actually the easiest phase if you stacked up your damage reductions in the previous phase properly. You can simply just soul split and DPS away and pretty much ignore every mechanic. If you didn't stack up your damage reductions properly, then you will have to pay a little bit more attention to the mechanics. In this phase, he uses ranged attacks and will occasionally use a mage smash, where he jumps up into the air and smashes himself back down and does hard DPS. You can just disruption shield that if you need to, or prayer flick. But if you stacked up your damage reduction nicely, then it's very, very easy. You just soul split and do as much DPS as you can until the end of the fight. The third part of the dungeon, which goes between Masuta and Seiryu, is very, very quick. In fact, there's only 3 things that you need to kill here, so I haven't felt the need to speed the clip up at all. You just need to kill this one pylon in the middle here, which you can just barge and bleed an assault or something on if you have the greater abilities unlocked, and then the 2 next to the chest here, which if you stand in the middle you can hit with Hurricane and Quake. If you don't have these abilities, it's not going to slow you down that much. So the final part of ED1 is Seiryu, and there's 4 main mechanics that you need to deal with in the main part of the fight whilst you're down here, and I'll talk separately about what you need to do up with the crystals. The first one is when the hand slaps the ground. You can see on the left hand side of the screen, it will slap the ground and it will spawn a little dot underneath you that you have to just move off to avoid the damage. The second one is the deep breath, and you'll get a little box appear on your screen and it tells you that you're going to do it. To avoid this, you want to either use Resonance to heal you. If you drop your prayer whilst using Resonance, or swap to any other style than magic, then you will get a massive heal and it can heal you for like 6-7k plus. But if you mess it up, remember that that will also hit you for 6 or 7k. The other way of dealing with it, if you don't need healing or anything like that, is you can just use Disruption Shield and it will hit a 0. If you don't have Disruption Shield, then Devotion or Debilitate will help. Once Seiryu hits phase hit points of 7.2 million, he will lie down on the floor and you can then jump across to the platform. When learning, it's probably easiest to start learning with a free cycle kill. That way you only have to worry about killing 1 crystal per time. However, as you get more advanced and more into it, you'll be able to do 2 cycles, and for very, very high end players, maybe even 1 cycles. You want to make sure you start with 100% adrenaline, so you can get as much DPS as you can, and then Berserk or Death Swiftness if you are using range. If you're in melee distance of it, you can drop your Dominion Mines on it, and using a Vuln Bomb will help increase your DPS substantially, and you just want to DPS as hard as you can. As you can see, I just got the first crystal down there. If you're free cycling, that is all you need to do, and you don't really need to worry about the other crystals. If you want to try and 2 cycle, then you need to go to the other crystal, build your adrenaline back up again, once again Vuln Bomb, and then you want to either ZGS spec, or if you have Greater Flurry unlocked, you'll be able to Zerk again, and then you can just barge back in and DPS this down. You'll need to be able to get it under half hit points to be able to successfully 2 cycle this. However, if you're learning, don't worry about doing this, and you can just kill each one individually and it will give you about a 10-minute kill time, which is still plenty enough to make a good amount of money per hour. Once you finish with the crystal, it will teleport you down. You need to then free them and kill the jellies. If you don't free them, you can't kill them, and if they go into the boss, then they will heal it again. So I'm now going to show you a full free cycle kill, all sped up, but using range this time, to show you how it works with a different combat style. I've also taken the overlay off screen so you can see better how I deal with each of the mechanics without the text over the top. As you can see, you just need to DPS as much as you can, whilst avoiding any of the hands or anything that come out of the floor, and moving off the hand slap spots. Using Disruption Shield there to avoid the big huge breath, and then running away there from the hands. Once again, once we get to 7.2 mil hit points, it will then go to the floor and you can go up to the top. Because I'm not using Dominion Mines for the extra damage in this kill, we're definitely going for a free cycle. And as you see, I just Death Swiftness and then work on doing as much damage as I can on the first crystal. As long as you can get 1 crystal down before it starts healing it, then you are guaranteed to get a free cycle because you can just do it no matter what. As you can see here, I start hitting onto the second one, but I have no real ambition for going for a 2 cycle here, as I don't have Dominion Mines, so I don't really have the DPS to be able to do it. For the rest of the kill, it is very similar, and you just need to do the exact same as you did in the first phase. All the mechanics are exactly the same, and then it'll get to 7.2 million hit points again, and you'll be able to jump straight up onto the back of Seiryu and deal with the other crystal. If you're free cycling, it doesn't matter whether you go up the left or the right side again, but if you are going for a 2 cycle, then you want to go up the opposite side to what you went up before, so you can kill the crystal that has full hit points and then move on to the crystal which has half hit points, which you should then be able to kill before any of the jellies go in. However, this does require a lot more DPS than doing a free cycle. If you're a beginner, a free cycle is much easier. So then you want to jump up onto the side again once it gets to 7.2 million hit points and deal with the crystal on this side exactly the same as you did on the other side. Use your Vuln Bomb and then just use a DPS ability like Berserk or Death Swiftness, as I am ranging here, and go and do as much DPS as you can. As you can see, once again, we managed to get the crystal down nicely before any of the jellies come in, but you see they're going in now and we can't get the 2 cycle off because it still had about 50k hit points left. If we'd been using Dominion Mines, we'd have been a lot closer, as it would have done 20k damage on each of them, and you'd have been able to put them on the middle, so that would have been an extra 60k damage, and that would have probably been a 2 cycle kill. Once you get down for a 3 cycle, you come back down, and once again the first phase is repeated exactly the same as before, so you just want to focus on avoiding any of the mechanics and dealing as much damage as you can to get it done quickly. The amount of time that your kill takes is very dependent on the cycles rather than your actual DPS. A 2 cycle kill is going to be always substantially quicker than even the quickest 3 cycle kill, purely because you have to do an entire phase less, basically. So you want to keep DPSing this again down now, and once again you will get to 7.2 million hit points relatively quickly. It'll only take a couple of minutes of just dealing with the mechanics, and then you need to jump up to the top. The last crystal probably won't have completely full hit points, but even if it does, you now know you can do the DPS to be able to get it down, and you just want to carry on and kill that, and once you have, that is Seiryu complete. Thank you very much for watching this guide. I really hope it did help you getting your first few Elite Dungeon 1 solos, or even if it didn't and it managed to help you get a few group kills, that's also really good. If you did enjoy the video or found it helpful, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a like and subscribe to my channel for all my future content, and as always there are links in the description to Twitch and Discord. Until next time guys, see ya.